All right, let's take a look at 11.9 practice test. When you're solving these radical equations, making sure you get the square root by itself first, then square it to get the x. Let's get into it. So minus 4, minus 4. 2 square root of x equals 16. I need to get the square root by itself, so I'm going to divide by 2. Whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other. Square root of x equals 8. Square to get rid of the square root. X equals 64. All right, we're not completely done because, as you know, like we have trick solutions with square roots called extraneous solutions. So you always got to go back and check your answer or test it. That's what I got here. So 2 square root of 64 plus 4 equals 20. Making sure instead of going in, like we got to go in reverse order from what we did to solve. So I'm going to start inside the square root. Square root of 64 is 8. 2 times 8 plus 4. 2 times 8 is 16. Well, 16 plus 4 does in fact equal 20, so we did it. That means that x equals 64 is our solution, and there's no extraneous, so we'll just say none. Looking at the next one, divide both sides by -5. A lot of students have a tendency to add 5, but we're splitting it up from the square root. So make sure we divide to do that. Now if we square root of x equals 8, square both sides, and we end up x equals 64 again. Testing our solution, plugging it back in, -5 square root of 64 equals -40. Just replacing that x. Square root of 64 is 8. -5 times 8 is in fact -40, so just like the last one, x equals 64 is a solution. There's no extraneous because they worked. On to the next. Got to get the square root by itself before we can square both sides. So making sure we add 1. Then I have square root of v plus 3 equals 8. Now we can square both sides, right? This 3, it's all locked in there. So square this, square this. I'm left with v plus 3 equals 64. There it is again. -3, v equals 61. On to testing it. V plus, replace v with what we solved for, 61, plus 3 minus 1 equals 7. Square root of 64, when we start inside the square root, -1. Do the square root first, keeping with our order of operations. So 8 minus 1, and that does equal 7. So we're good. Right? All these ones were pretty straightforward, so we didn't have any extraneous. But as we go to the next page, we will see the ones that do give us some extraneous solutions. All right, scrolling down. Whenever you see that you have x on either side, this means that, we're going to have to do something different from before. Here, the square root is already by itself. That's what we're going to deal with first. So we're going to square both sides. I'm left with 7x minus 10 equals x squared. In order to solve, and whenever you see an x squared, you have to get everything on the same side because we're going to have to do the x method. So I'm going to subtract 7x, move it over here. I'm going to add 10, move it over here. We're left with 0 equals x squared is going to stay the same. The 7x can't get combined, so it gets put there, and then plus 10. When making our x, we're going to put 10 on top, -7 on the bottom, and what multiplies to give us 10 but adds to give us 7, that's going to be -2 and -5. When we factor, we're going to do x minus 2, x minus 5 equals 0. Right? This is a lot of steps. I know. We're almost there. Break it up. We have to separate and solve. So I'm going to separate it into x minus 2 equals 0 and x minus 5 equals 0. Solving for each one, we're going to add 2, and we get x equals 2. We're going to add 5, and add 5, and we get x equals 5. Now, when there's two solutions, right, at least one of them's got to be extraneous, so let's go back and check. I'm going to test both of them. 7, parentheses, 2 minus 10 equals 2. So 7 times 2 is 14. 14 minus 10, well, that equals 4. The square root of 4 does in fact equal 2, so that checks out. One of our solutions is x equals 2. Now we're going to go through and check the other one. So I'm going to check x equals 5. We're going to do square root. 7 parentheses 5 minus 10 equals 5. Square both sides. Oh wait, no, don't do that. Always start in them. Always start inside the square root. 7 times 5 is 35. 35 minus 10 is 25. And just square root of 25 does in fact equal 5. I take back what I said before. Always check them. Let's see if we get both of them the solutions for the next one. Square both sides. Square both sides, we get 12 plus 4x equals x squared minus 12 minus 4x minus 12 minus 4x. All right, so I just built that x there, putting that negative 12, the c value on top, putting the negative 4 on the bottom. What multiplies to give me negative 12 and adds to give me negative 4, that was negative 6 and 2. All right, once we have these numbers, we put it in our factored version because a equals 1, so we can just go right to the trick. Then we have to separate and solve. X minus 6 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0, which gives us x equals 6 and x equals negative 2. Got to check them both. Both could work. One could work. None of them could work. So all the way back to the beginning. Square root of 12 plus 4 parentheses 6 equals 6. 4 times 6 is 24. 24 plus 12 is going to be 36. And the square root of 36 does equal 6. That one checks out. X equals 6 is one of our solutions. Plugging in negative 2. Square root of 12 plus 4 parentheses negative 2. And we want to know if that equals negative 2. Well, this would be 12 minus 8, which is 4. Square root of 4 does not equal negative 2, so that means x equals negative 2 is one of our extraneous. So is an extraneous solution. So one works, one was a trick, making sure we checked it both times. Last problem. Get the square root by itself. Minus 12, minus 12. Square root of 4x equals negative 2. When we're squaring both sides for this one, we're going to make sure we put that negative 2 in parentheses, because that's going to change things. 4x equals 4. Divide by 4. Divide by 4. X equals 1. Got to test it. Going back, put it in the square root. 4 parentheses. Instead of x, we're going to put 1. Plus 12 equals 10. That's the square root of 4 plus 12. Square root of 4 is 2. 2 plus 12 does not equal 10. So in this case, there are no solutions, and the extraneous is x equals 1.